What's up, MMA fans on YouTube? How you doing today? It's Monday, and I'm gonna start doing my MMA issues of the week on Mondays because just to time issues with what I got going on in my life. So I'm sorry that these last 3 weeks they've been spaced pretty close together, but I know you'll bear with it. So thanks a lot on that. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the responses. Especially you, Chase, Mark, the Miz. You always, voice your opinions. The UFC kid. Thank you guys for, talking MMA with me because, I love talking MMA. Any of you else who want to talk MMA anytime, any topic, I'll talk about it. This week's topic, and I'm sorry, but I'm having a rough day today, so I know it's not professional, but this week's topic is title shots in the UFC. Who deserves them? What requirements do you need to be worthy of a title shot? Because these days it's not who you fight, it's how your fights go, how you fight. Because and the example is Arlovsky was probably in line for another title shot, but he had his boring performance, and I'm not going to get into this again, but he had his boring performance against Fabricio Verdum, and it got taken away. But the one thing, and I'm on both sides of the fence with this, you see, because the part I disagree with is a guy coming into the UFC fighting one fight and getting a title shot, much like, Anderson Silva. And I'm not bashing Anderson Silva because he's a great champion, and as I've said before, he's unstoppable at 185. I do believe that. But I'm talking like, BJ Penn is an example, is that he comes into the UFC and loses 2 straight. Gets the coach on The Ultimate Fighter Season 5, obliterates Jens Pulver, which was impressive, by the way, and he gets a title shot. Where when guys in the lightweight division, like are much more, I don't want to say much more deserving, because BJ is a great fighter and he has proved himself in other organizations. But guys like Kenny Florian, I think, is deserving of another shot. Or guys like, I know Clay Guida's 2-2 in the UFC, but I really think Clay Guida deserves some kind of recognition. Tyson Griffin, Frankie Edgar, Spencer Fisher. All those guys, Roger Hoyta, they're great fighters. I'm really excited to see Hoyta and Guida lock horns at the finale, because that will be an amazing, amazing fight, and I think the winner should get a title shot. But like a guy like BJ Penn, like, great fighter, he's well known, but 1-2 in the UFC, and he's getting a title shot. I don't necessarily agree with that. Now here's where I'm in agreement is a guy like Dan Henderson comes in. He's two belts in 2 different weight classes at the same time, in which he dominated both performances to get those 2 belts. But, I believe that the UFC was in the right to let him jump in against Quentin Rampage Jackson right away. And it's not even so much for the the unification of the titles. I think it was the right thing to do, much like not for the title unification, but as Dana White stated before, and I've stated before, if Fedor Emelianenko signs with the UFC, and he will indeed fight Randy Couture. And I think that's right, but that's kind of both sides of the fence, you can see. But let's get into some specifics here. In the heavyweight division, we'll start at is that who is there to fight Couture? And I don't want people to say, well, Big Nog's in there, and Czech Congo just beat Crow Cup, because you know what, Czech Congo has lost to a 205er, and Nogueira's had 1 fight in the cage, and personally, if I was a ref, I would have stopped it when Herrick kicked him in the head, but that's just me, and that's beside the point. But I'm not saying it wasn't impressive, but it wasn't Nogueira we're used to seeing. I think Nogueira still needs a few more fights to get used to the cage, because you look what was happening to Crow Cup, and there's another guy who's supposed to win all his fights, and he was basically fed with a silver spoon, like his first fight was Eddie Sanchez, and I'm not knocking these fighters, but Crow Cup obliterated him. Crow Cup was probably supposed to obliterate Gonzaga. I'm sure the UFC didn't think that Gonzaga stood a chance. Then he lost, and it was good for Gonzaga. But then a guy like Czech Congo, and I'm not knocking Congo, like I said, I'm not knocking these fighters. I thought that was a gift for Crow Cup, but once again, Crow Cup loses, so he's out of the title picture. But then you got like Arlovsky. Like, Arlovsky Couture would be a big draw. Or what, even do this, go Big Nog and Arlovsky for #1 contendership, because I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed off if Brandon Vera and Tim Sylvia is for #1 contendership. Only on this point is that where it goes back to Tim Sylvia lost the belt. If he fights 1 fight and wins and gets a title shot, I don't think that's right. Brandon Vera is a guy in the heavyweight division who I think, is deserving to be up there. You want to go to the light heavyweight division now, that division is in chaos. And I don't mean in a bad way. It's just, everyone can kind of see where a plan's going. And I know they say, it's unpredictable and not planned out. But you kind of think, okay, if we give Chuck Liddell Keith Jardine and he knocks him out, we can throw him up against Rampage again or set up the Vanderlei fight. But, Keith Jardine surprises us all. Same with Shogun. Oh, if Shogun beats our biggest, one of our bigger stars, Forrest Griffin, he's in line for a title shot. Forrest, wins. And now would be a perfect time to set up Jardine Forrest 2 for a title shot. But you got guys like, Henderson and Shogun and Liddell who have just, they've all recently lost. Chuck twice in a row now, and Henderson had his shot, and he's gonna have a few fights before he gets back in title contention. But if something happened like, okay, Rampage beat Liddell, and then say Liddell fought Wanderlei after that and won, then yeah, give him a title shot. But there's so many deserving guys in there that don't get the recognition they should. Houston Alexander, it seems to be the real deal. I'd still like to see him fight a few more times before a title shot. Lyoto Machida, call him a boring fighter if you want. He's a talented fighter, and he's got a lot more talent than most of those guys in that division. So it's going to be interesting to see. I really have no prediction. In the heavyweight, I think it should be an Arlovsky versus Couture. Light heavyweight division, have have Forrest and Jardine fight it out for a number one contendership. Middleweight division. Now this division should have 2 belts, one for Anderson Silva and one for everybody else, because I'm telling you right now, the guy's unstoppable. That's just my opinion. It's a strong opinion. If you disagree with you, I'm not going to argue about it, but that's just my opinion. Until you bring in guys like Dennis Kang, Paulo Filho, even a Frank Shamrock, a Matt Lindland, to fight Anderson Silva, because I know and Mark told me that indeed Ryan Shonen, who has a victory over Anderson Silva, is coming to the UFC. You know what? Anderson Silva was kicking his ass pretty good before that flying, and I'm not taking anything away from Ryo, because I'd love to see that fight. But the thing is, I don't want to see Ryo come right into the UFC, beat one guy, and get a title shot. And the danger of that is, he could lose any fights before a title shot, and that's why it's hard to constitute who gets a title shot. So as for the 185 division, I really don't know who they're going to give Anderson Silva next. I just feel bad for whoever the hell they do. Let's move down to the welterweight division, and you know what? I'm not knocking the fighters. I love Hughes, I love George St. Pierre, I love Serra, but there's always going to be a triangle there now, and I just don't want to see it go too far, because George St. Pierre obviously is going to get a shot at the winner of that, whether it be Hughes, whether it be Serra, because if he beats Hughes, it's 2-1 George St. Pierre. If Serra beats Hughes and Serra fights St. Pierre, that's just going to have to set up, St. Pierre, Serra 3 if St. Pierre wins. I just don't want to see it go that far, because in the 170 division, there's so many deserving guys. There's John Fitch, Diego and Koscheck, although they've just come off losses. I think they're very deserving. Carr was always a player in that division. There's so many guys in the 170 division that, are deserving. And I just, I hope, that those guys, get what they deserve. John Fitch I think, should be first in line for a title shot. Right now, I think, he should have a safe, guaranteed title shot, whether he fights again and loses, because he is a machine and he's on a roll in the UFC now. The lightweight division is something that, it's the only thing that kind of bugs me, is because BJ Penn, like I stated earlier, 2 losses in a row, then 1 win, and now a title shot. You know what? I love BJ, and he's a great fighter, but I don't really think he should be getting a title shot, right away. I know Kenny Florian had his, but, he finishes his fights. He's very deserving. He's very charismatic, and as promotional standards, very, very marketable. Clay Guida, Tyson Griffin, Spencer Fisher, Roger Hoyta, all those guys, all deserving in my eyes. And yeah, I just, and like I said, this is just an issue, that keeps me wondering, and not, I'm not complaining about it, but I want to know your thoughts, and get into specifics if you reply to this. Who do you think should have a title shot, be first in line? What do you think, constitutes who is a number 1 contender, and, how you get that? Thanks for watching, guys. Once again, Chase, Mark, UFC Kid, all you guys, Thanks for responding to my videos. I love the feedback. I love talking MMA. So until I see you next Monday for number 4, I will talk to you guys later. And whenever they get the full card up for the next UFC, I'll have my predictions up too. But I got my other issues up. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. And take care and enjoy MMA, guys. See ya.